now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten. And today we are spoiling the first two episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I'm like, that's got to be the name, right? I feel like they did Spider-Man freshman year, then they switched it. And IMDb up until today was still saying Spider-Man freshman year, but it is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure.
It is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
I think before we get into it, we would be remiss, especially for a show like ours, to not acknowledge the Hudson, Thames of it all.
Yes, right into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some very disappointing takes online based on his comments, and I'm like, I mean, so if you don't know, that's probably best. The lead actor, the voice of Peter Parker and Spider-Man on the show, had an interview released. Who knows when he did it, but it was released like a day before the show came out, and it was like him saying, "Yeah, my biggest fear was that it was going to be annoying and woke, but it isn't. It's good." And I'm just like,
so
I just was like, "Come on, I think." Not I think. I know that I didn't like that he said that, and that says a lot. But it is more infuriating when you see people being like, "Well, you don't know like how he means." I'm like, yes, I do know how he means it, especially since now we've all seen the show. So he only meant it in a racist way. There's no way he was like, "Oh, it is not woke," and it's like, what do you mean? The show is like that is very clearly what's going on in the show.
Yeah.
So you just meant like, ugh, they're gonna be doing a bunch of gender swap, race swap stuff. And I don't know why you backtracked on that, but that is what you thought. Like you were like, "Oh, they're gonna probably force a lot of diversity into this."
Which I don't get that comment on, because the first two episodes, I'm like, is this guy even aware of what's going on in the show? Because it's pretty diverse. It's got a lot of gender swapping, race swapping characters and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, what the hell is he talking about? It's just like annoyingly woke. And the only thing I could deduce from that is, whether or not it's like pandering or virtue signaling woke issues or stuff like that, which I don't think this show is. It's just like, oh, here's some like
he didn't say annoyingly
characters.
woke. He said annoying and woke. If he had said annoyingly woke, if he had said annoyingly woke, I would be more on your side. But
gotcha.
He said annoying and woke. That is a dog whistle. He did not mean that in good faith. I think my concern when I saw the trailers and I didn't know what he said and I hadn't seen the episodes was, well, it looks like the villains are all black guys. So he's going to be able to beat up on a bunch of black people. And even in the show, like when you do watch the show, we'll get into properly dissecting the episodes. But like when you go into the show, like even though Harry Osborn isn't a bad guy in the first episode, the first person who gets hurt is a black person. It's the person attacking him, even though the team is led by a white guy. So I was like, oh, is that what he liked about it? That like black people still get hurt in this? Like it was just like this weird thing he lobbed up in the air of it was going to be annoying and woke, but it's not. So that's good. And I think all I could think of was, well, at least he knows the bad guys are black people. For the like Lonnie Lincoln's going to turn into Tombstone. So Harry Osborn will ultimately be a bad guy. Maybe not in this season, but ultimately will be an antagonist at some point.
Yes.
So yeah, that like, and even when he does the truck thing, it's the black person that gets hit and knocked out even though it's like a black and a white. So I don't know if he saw that, but I could see him being like, well, at least some of the bad guys are still black. I can beat them up. Like the swap with Kurt Connors to, I can't remember, is Kira Connors or but his mentor when he goes to the thing is a South Asian woman, so it's like, well,
Mhm.
I get to beat up on a woman. I know I'm putting words in his mouth, but it is like he did a dog whistle and then did a weird backpedal all in one thing,
Mhm.
and so if there is any confusion, it's why would you say that in the first place, even because it seems like it was unprovoked.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think seeing people be like, yeah, we don't know, like, what's the? I'm like, you do know, and you acting like this is why Elon Musk can do a Nazi salute on TV, and everyone's like, what do you get to do about it?
I'm
Like
very
you,
glad you said that because the amount of like bending backwards to defend it is like, oh, he's not. I'm like, no, that's
no,
not.
you
What the
need
hell is
to
this?
make bigots and racist people feel uncomfortable doing that shit.
Yeah, yeah,
It is
that's
not.
that's
It's
what
not. It's
worked in
not
the
about
60s.
like. It's not about like. Well, we've got to think about it. Like I saw people like, what about this actor's mental health? I'm like, I mean, he made a choice. He that's
Yeah.
I think that there's a difference between like if there's someone in your life, like a family member or a friend that you legitimately want to be in community with,
Mhm.
then yeah, you need to have those conversations and help them. But
Mhm.
you're not going. You no one's gonna be talking to this actor like
No.
out of us commentating. He just needs to feel bad about making a choice like that, and hopefully
Yes,
he does better.
absolutely.
No one's asking for him to be killed. I don't think he's gonna lose his job. I think they're just gonna be like, "Hey, look, put out this statement later."
Yeah.
So like, it won't matter ultimately to him.
Mhm.
He's just gonna have a bad week where he has to delete some of his social media.
Yeah, yeah, and this is like, I think the double standards here are wild because, on one hand, you have Anthony Mackie doing a press tour
Mm-hmm.
in Europe talking about what he thinks Captain America
And
stands
saying
for.
exactly what Chris Evans said in 2011.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then everyone's like, oh, he hates America. He's Captain Anti. I'm like, how are you spinning that so out of context when you can go and watch Elon on stage doing Nazi salutes and be like, oh yeah, he's autistic. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
It's just wild to me. Like, and I like what you said because this has to be laughed out of existence because that was the only effective thing that really got the KKK to reduce its numbers in like I think the 50s and 60s or something like that. They were just relentlessly made fun of. And now everyone's like, no, wait, they might have a point, and we're bending over backwards and we're
Mm-hmm.
we're shifting goalposts and all this kind of stuff. And the numbers are growing again. And
Yeah.
we're just what the hell, man? It's so like whenever I hear anyone complaining about woke stuff, I'm like, I immediately dismiss that because to me, I'm like, oh, you're just bandwagon hating on something because even though this property is still, yeah, you still got a white guy at the center of everything. Like
Yeah.
he's the main character.
He's the good guy.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you're all complaining that not the world's not bowing down to you anymore. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry that your delusional worldview has been broken apart, but this is just, you know, this is what is happening, and
Yeah.
it's just
I
the
don't.
most ridiculous thing.
That's why I don't feel bad for him. Like you make a
No.
comment like that.
Mhm.
I don't know if he did that interview like the second day after he was hired and hadn't recorded anything yet, but like you probably have a good idea of what the show is, seeing as how you're in like 98% of the scenes we see in this show.
Mhm.
You probably have a good sense of what's going on. So I don't know what you mean by, but good thing it wasn't annoying and woke. Like,
Yeah.
well, like you. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there that that is how I feel about it. We're not saying don't watch the show.
Mhm.
It doesn't factor into how, and we're not gonna rate it at this. We're gonna rate the full season, but like,
Mhm.
it's not gonna factor into my rating. It's just I already had my feelings about making a lot of the people I knew to be bad guys black people or people. I mean, and I didn't even know about the lizard change they made, but like
Mhm.
I felt the way about that, and then hearing him say that, I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
And then I saw the show. That's all I'll say. And then I saw the show, but ahead of time, it wasn't looking great.
No. No. I went into it like, oh, you broke that news to me, and then I was just like, what the hell is happening right now? And then I see it, and I'm like, I don't think this guy even knows what show he's starring in right now because this
No.
is very woke in a very good way, not like a pandering, virtue
Woke is
signaling
only
way.
a good thing. I would like to reclaim the word. I think that's the problem when white people get involved. Is they
Yes.
dilute the meaning of things.
Yeah.
There is no
I
such thing as being woke in a bad way. You're not being woke if you're doing the things that you're alluding to. The
I
pandering and all that
yeah.
shit is not being woke. That
It's
is
yes.
pandering.
That's
So
white guilt,
yeah,
basically.
so
Yeah.
that's what I mean by there is no. You're not being woke if this is coming off as pandering or weird.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
isn't woke. That is chasing a
That's
check.
yeah.
And what you
Performative
said, the
and
white guilt, the
bullshit. Yeah.
performative stuff. That's
Mhm.
something different, and it is
Yes.
part of the issue I have with um when you go further right.
Mhm.
They do like to confuse the issue by fucking with definitions of things.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
why we are where we are, where people won't even say that that was a Nazi salute. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a Roman salute, or what even does that mean? No,
Mhm.
he's putting his heart out there. All of that shit is on purpose. That's not them being dumb. The
Yeah.
same way they co-opted woke and fuck that shit up too. The same way they fuck up DEI. The same way they fuck up
Hmm.
critical race theory. That is all on purpose. It is not
It
an
is.
accident. That's not them being dumb. They know what they're doing, and so I, for my purposes, I'm not going to give any leeway when people are like, oh, well, you know when woke isn't it? No, because that's not what woke is.
Hmm.
There's a
Hmm.
very clear
This.
definition of, and you know when you're seeing something that's woke, like an instance in this show where he captures a woman and is like, here's your money back, store owner, but also maybe we don't punish this person.
Yes.
That's not awkward or weird or annoying. That is woke. That is realizing the situation you're in. It's just an
Yeah.
awareness of people who are marginalized.
Yeah, and it's empathy towards those people that are marginalized down on their luck and all this kind of stuff. And in that scene in particular, you really, really believe it because of all the things that are going on, and then how the store owner is like, like, yeah, here's what we're gonna do here, all this kind of stuff. It just wokeness, and I like what you said, is a philosophy that's getting slandered and torn apart and like dragged through the mud because of basically how the people on the right are blurring those definitions between performative white guilt, for lack of a better term, in this opinion, like especially in the video game world right now, like with what's happening with Assassin's Creed and all that kind of stuff, and people are, oh, it's poke, it's this, and I'm like, this is dumb. Uh, I agree with what's happening with Assassin's Creed because they're just like, yeah, we're doing this and it's reflective of history and all that kind of stuff. And every decision they make is the wrong one to promote that game and what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, yeah, that's not the idea of wokeness that's the problem. It's the idea that a bunch of white people in a boardroom are trying to push their performative white guilt
Mm-hmm.
onto the world and expect people to be like, no, we need this to sell 30 million copies and all that kind of stuff, otherwise DEI is all that. And it's just like the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's so stupid because there's so many clear-cut examples of good woke things that are happening right now, none of which are done by white people, I would say. And this is one of those examples. We have a black director doing this whole show and all this kind of stuff. And like the
Certainly a
things that
black
are,
writer.
yeah, a black writer and a black director. And everything that's coming out of this show that is woke, I'm like, yeah, this is how it's done properly. It's not done in a performative guilt way where it's like, hey, check out how much money we gave to black and Latino disenfranchised youth in like, whatever. It's just like, no, you don't stop looking for validation when they do that kind of crap. But it's just, it's so weird to me that that was the one quote. But everyone else is distracted by Anthony Mackie's thing that, like you said, Chris Evans has even said himself. The whole idea of this Captain America, which is why you and I like it, is that he, like the original one, at least the Chris Evans one, is like his thing is he doesn't like bullies.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I'm like, okay, good.
It's also
That's
what they
awesome.
were doing on Superman and Lois when he was saving like North Koreans, and the army had to be like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
those are the bad guys." He's like, "No, those were just civilians." I
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think that is, yeah, that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, I appreciate when you see the characters. I don't even think modified. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, he was just supposed to protect America. It's like, no, that's like what got written because those were the people in charge of writing the stories, but the
Yeah.
basis of what they're for isn't just to protect America. It is to be these people that don't like bullies and see what's wrong in the world and want to fix it.
Mhm.
Like Spider-Man. So let's get into the show.
Mhm.
We can talk about it now. So yeah, we at this point we've only seen the first two episodes.
Mhm.
Um, and the first episode really covers just him becoming Spider-Man. I like all the different ways that it played with my perception of it, because obviously
Mhm.
they did a lot of things where you're like, yeah, this is from Civil War or this is from Homecoming.
Mhm.
Um, and or just in general, like the first thing is him waking up and getting his oatmeal from Aunt May, and
In
then
a
when he misses
bag.
when he misses his when he
Train.
misses train and he
Subway
goes to
or
his
a
bag, I was
train,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, this is where he's gonna put on his doo doo costume. But I was like, oh yeah, he doesn't have that yet. Oh, all right, cool. And I like that. May's like, yeah, I'll just take you to school. I'd rather you be not late and me late than the other
Mhm.
way. And you like solidify that relationship really well.
Mhm.
Also, doing the well, Uncle Ben's already dead, so you're not gonna get him saying, "With great power comes great responsibility," which a lot of historians point out that was a Stan Lee quote, not an Uncle Ben quote. But
Yeah. Because
you know,
yeah, like
so
we
it doesn't have
like
to be him. Yeah,
yeah, because in Spider-Man 3, Aunt May says the actual lines that were written the first time Uncle Ben says it, and not like with great
oh,
power
No
comes
Way
great
Home.
responsibility. Yeah, in No
Oh,
Way
okay,
Home.
I
Yeah.
didn't know if you meant Spider-Man 3 Tobey Maguire.
No, I
Okay,
just can't remember the
yeah,
names
okay, No
sometimes.
Way Home. All
Yeah,
right.
No Way Home. Yeah.
Yeah. So the I like that. Yeah, so I liked that. So he gets to school and then immediately I was like, oh shit, they're already doing like a symbiote. I knew it wasn't Venom, but I was like, oh shit, a symbiote already. And
Mhm.
Doctor Strange is there, and that dimension is where the spider comes from.
Mhm.
A detail I noticed that I thought was interesting was that someone else walks off with that spider. So I'm like, I
Yes.
wonder where that's going, because that's not brought up in the two episodes we've seen. And I was like, oh, that's some nice world building. It's like, so that spider's still out there. It can still do some damage. He didn't kill the
Mhm.
spider.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, he gets bit, and right away I'm like, oh shit, he's friends with one of the main characters from the Runaways, like Nico.
Yeah.
Um, so that's cool. Although I was looking at someone's video, Nando V Movies, he was saying that there are comics that go along with this, and they
Mhm.
pretty much are like, she's not doing magic, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. I thought she was like secretly gonna or develop to do some magic, but it kind of seems like that's not really
Mhm.
in the cards for this show.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's another thing I enjoy, which is they're just populating the show with actual characters from the comics. Like
Yes, because there's a lot of
I
them
don't
too in
think there
episode
are,
two.
I don't
Like
think
it's
there's
great.
anyone in the show actually that's not like anyone who speaks for more than one line at a time that's not somewhere
Right.
in the comics, even
Yeah.
if they're a deep pull. So that's really cool. But yeah, I really like they solidify his relationship with Nico right away.
Mhm.
She is, if not a lesbian, she is queer because they're both going after the same girl, which is
Yep.
nice.
I
Um,
like that. I like that tension between that relationship. There's like they're friends, but they're actually like crushing on the same girl.
and I
It's
like that
great.
it's not a competition really with them. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
I like her too, so just so you know.
Yeah.
Like, um, even Pearl is a character Wave or somebody.
Yeah.
She becomes a superhero.
She's like the
Um,
first
yeah,
Filipino that gets superhero powers
I'm
in
going to have
the
to get used
book.
to Filipino people being colored like that in cartoons,
Mhm.
because I was just like, I feel
Is
like they're
she
saying she's
Latina?
black,
Or
and
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
but then I looked up the actor. I'm like, oh, okay, got
Yeah.
it, got it. Um, but yeah, I can't remember what other we've covered in another show. Where I'm like, oh, I know this person's supposed to be Filipino, but they are colored very dark. I think, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I really like Nico, and then the other big surprise I had was how much I liked Lonnie Lincoln. I thought
Yes.
that first episode is like big on Lonnie Lincoln, and
I,
just how they throw you for a loop. Not in, I mean, yes, in Spider-Man lore, but just in general, how you think these types of shows should go.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I watched that same video by Nando, and I like his stuff, and like he points out really, really good things where everything that you're expecting the story beats to hit for a Spider-Man show and all that kind of stuff. You're not really getting that. You're kind of getting a different version of
Hmm.
everything like that. And it's really, really good because that is one of the most ridiculous things to me that it's just every single Spider-Man thing. It's just over and over and over again, the same origin
Like
story,
the
the same
Flash Thompson
whatever.
type thing. Yeah,
Exactly,
like
right?
it is important that he's Lonnie Lincoln because he's not a
Mhm.
Flash Thompson stand-in. Like
Correct.
I like that they set him up like that, and then immediately was like, I want to work with Peter, and I thought to myself the same way Nico did, like, yeah, he just wants to use him.
Yep.
But then he's like, no, I want to work with the best because that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
I wanted to be good at this shit, so I'm gonna work with that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole yeah, and Pearl talked about you, but I like that he's genuine. Like, I want to connect with you because
Hmm.
I want like this is something I'm interested in, and so steel sharpens steel in that way, and I really appreciated that that was the thing. It didn't feel like he was like, oh, I'm just gonna keep an eye on you because you have a crush on my girlfriend. It was like, no,
Hmm.
I like you, like I'm
Hmm.
actually interested in you as a person.
Yeah, I love Lonnie. I think he's great. It's just the idea that I know that that is the name of Tombstone. I'm like, oh no, that's gonna suck later on when that happens because I
It
just,
just feels tragic already before you even
yeah.
have that scene. I really liked the scene where he's like he says goodbye to Pearl, and then
Mhm.
Peter comes up to him, and I didn't really feel like he was throwing it out there like we should hang out, but it felt very clear to me after they part ways that he's like, "Oh, I was hoping we would hang out."
Mhm.
The whole like, "Well, oh, I won't keep you then. You got to go home." Bye,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just kind of how sad he looks and deflated he looks when Peter walks away, and obviously the imagery of them just splitting that way. And I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, he wanted to connect," and then you see like, "Oh, he's got to go home." So
Yeah.
he's there in Queens. He's just got to go to Harlem, and
Yep.
it's like, and here it is, like the woman not wanting her white kid to like hang around him on the subway,
Yep.
obviously being followed by the cops.
Mhm.
Um, and he's
Immediately dealing with racism. It's just like
and I
it's
like that they weren't
great.
like leaning into like struggle porn. It was just like yeah, like
Yes.
have a happy home. Like there's two parents here. I got my brother. I help him
Hmm.
with his homework. I'm gonna try and help my parents with any like financial stuff that could.
Helps the mom with the
Yeah, like
alternator.
I
It
spoke to the shop teacher, so like
yeah.
I just like how good he is. I like how thoughtful he is,
Yep.
and uh, I like that the show is setting me up for heartbreak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if
It's
it's next season, I know they got renewed for 3 seasons, but
oh
like,
nice.
so it's like I don't know if they have to rush it and make him Tombstone in this season, but like,
I hope
no,
not.
they know they have 3 seasons, so
Mhm.
like maybe he gets there ultimately, but it is just like that's just gonna be so sad.
Mhm. I mean, and I think one of the most tragic things is when he does become Tombstone, if at all, and probably not this season, whatever. It's just that I think the one thing that Nando points out that's really, really good is that like the most compelling Spider-Man villains are the ones that have interactions with Peter in his Peter life as well as Spider-Man in his Spider-Man life, right?
Hmm.
Like you think of Harry Osborn, Norman Osborn, all these people that are like part of his personal life that he's got to have
The
this
lizard,
conflict of
yeah,
being like, yeah, all this kind of stuff. And then now we have Lonnie, who's a character that from Tombstone as a character has always been written off as like just a gangster or like this or whatever, and it doesn't have that big of a backstory. I'm like, this Lonnie is very interesting to me because I'm like, you take someone that has all of those amazing social supports, like the parents, the loving family, good school, and all that kind of stuff. Although, how does he turn into Tombstone? Is I think a very interesting thing
yeah.
to see what would happen, right? Because it's very
Well,
clearly it could be,
yeah, they're showing you like everyone has their
hmm,
opinion of him already. Like
yeah,
even at school, if people like him, they're like, "Because you're the football guy," and he's like, "That's I don't want to be defined as that. Like, yeah,
hmm,
I'm good at the, but I want options." But so people at school are like, and so like you, what I thought was so sad about the whole we could hang out is that that would give him a bit more time in the bubble where
yeah,
with a person who doesn't just see him as the football guy, like he
hmm,
could be in that safe geographic location, but in that space with someone who just knows a bit more about him.
hmm,
That's not family. I would imagine his family knows him, but
hmm,
like making that connection outside of his family would be nice. And so I just felt really sad that he didn't get that. Um, yeah, I feel like the first episode is like a lot of him saving. Like like what I really liked is they show you that he misses sometimes with his webbing.
Mhm.
Um, because I think at the first scene when he's leaving his room, he misses when he tries to shut something off, and then
Yep.
obviously during the truck chase that I mentioned earlier, he misses, and I was like, what is he doing? Like I'm so used to you seeing Spider-Man in general just knowing scientifically where to put the where to
Yeah,
put the
like
webbing that I was like that the first time he shot that garbage can I was like that's is that a thing? Like, is that going to help him? And he then the show's like, no, he just doesn't know how to do it properly yet. And I'm like,
yeah.
fair enough. It's only been a couple months.
It's great, and it's I think a little bit confusing to me because I know this is not directly connected to the MCU in the sense where it's like, oh, this is what
It
happened
just isn't.
between this, but
Yeah,
it's just like they're doing those like same beats that are visually um reminding you of the MCU Spider-Man, like how he stops the bus and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
yeah. The footage that
what's going on here right now? Like when
it's I like
Tony
the ending.
shows
Like
up.
I
Yeah.
because they're setting you up the whole time to be like, all right, so you remember when Tony Stark showed him the footage?
Mhm.
That's the footage,
Yeah.
and like I don't remember if it was an orange car in Civil War, but I just remember being like, yeah, that seems like the car that was out there. Are they put because and they even put Iron Man in the first shot, like that's like the thing hanging from
Yeah.
his from Aunt May's car.
Mhm.
So you're just like, I mean, it could be Tony. Like they've done a bunch of other surprises. Like it could be Tony again, and then
Mhm.
the episode ends on uh Norman Osborn, as played
Yep.
by Coleman Domingo. But yeah, the he's there instead of Tony, which I also like as sort of like I don't know if it's on purpose, but like just sort of meta commentary of like I think Nando said this as well, but it is a thought I had independently of just people think that that connection to Iron Man is a negative one, and so then in this one
Mhm.
they're just making it a very obvious negative association. I
Yep.
don't think it's negative in the MCU, but I know that's kind of the takeaway people have versus Norman Osborn just being a negative influence.
I just think that the people that have a negative take on that Spider-Man in the MCU are just not willing to meet the Spider-Man that they are trying to do, which is still a kid that is being mentored and all that
And
kind of stuff. For them to call him like mini Iron Man is just so egregiously wrong because I'm like, how do you expect a kid at his age to be doing fighting in Endgame and Infinity War and all that kind of stuff without any kind of
mhm,
mentorship, especially because he lost his father support figures in his life, his dad naturally, and
mhm,
his Uncle Ben. It's just like naturally as a kid you would gravitate towards someone that's willing to be like, hey, I'm gonna kind of, take you under my wing and do this kind of stuff and teach you. So like everything that he does in like the disappointment he has and the way he says to Tony is like, hey, it's like you're not even here. Like you just sent a suit
mhm,
after me, and Tony actually comes out of the suit. It like those moments are just like, yeah, he's craving a male figure, like a male role model in his life.
yeah.
Why is that a problem to people? It doesn't
What
make sense.
it's uh, I mean like everyone says they know what they want until they actually get it, right? Like
Oh
what
God,
those
no.
three movies did, I thought a good job of is being like he needed to be up to par with the MCU stuff. Exactly what you said. Like
Hmm.
he needs to be like Avenger level, and then we're gonna strip that all away, and you're gonna get the thing you want or the
Yep.
thing you say you want, which is him being a loser and needing to worry about money and paying rent. But they still gave you all the things he missed. Like in that first Homecoming movie, he doesn't get to just be a kid and hang out with his friends. He doesn't get to do that stuff. He's
Hmm.
constantly being pulled away from that shit, even if he has an Iron Man like made suit for him. Like
Hmm.
that's irrelevant. It's you're still getting the core of Peter Parker Spider-Man in those
Hmm.
movies, and then they show you like we were leading up to the with great power comes great responsibility shit. Like you like this was a story we were telling. It's what we've been doing since 2008. Like
Yeah.
go with us on this. You
Yeah.
just saw the first act of Spider-Man
Hmm.
in three
And
movies.
and now that we actually have Spider-Man that is more along the lines in the MCU of more along the lines of what people expect from Spider-Man, like the financial struggles and
Hmm.
him being a loner, not having a social support. I don't know why people want that, to be perfectly honest. But like we are there right now. So
Yeah.
whatever happens with Spider-Man 4 with Daniel Desencretin and what he decides to do with that story is just going to be like, all right, is this what people want? Because I liked what they did with the slow burn of
Hmm.
Peter in high school and all that kind of stuff. Is the idea of like, yeah, this is him having a life and him having so many great things that it's hard to say no to as a kid. You know, like he wants to say yes to everything. And that's, I think that is one of the quintessential things with Spider-Man is that he keeps doing that
Hmm.
and then he
He
keeps letting
overcommits.
everyone down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did that really, really well. And in this show, they're setting the stage up, I think,
Hmm.
for something very similar to that, but also uh being like, hey, we know you're familiar with this already, so we're gonna do this instead. And I
Yeah.
love that. It's really good. It keeps me interested for sure.
And then second episode, we're just gonna go kind of through, and then we can talk about bigger themes. Second
Oh
episode
yeah.
is kind of like not kind of you get to see his internship. He gets unlike the movies, he has an actual internship to go to. um,
Yes, he does.
um, and again in a room filled with characters. So like, and you've obviously seen the Nando video, so you know who the
Mhm.
characters are. People should go watch Nando's video
Yeah,
about
he's
it.
a great creator for sure.
Nando v movies. I mean, he doesn't understand what woke is, but he's still a good. He's
Yeah,
as best as you can get in given the limitations of his lived experience.
right.
Um, I think, yeah, I really liked. Obviously, I understood Amadeus Cho. I didn't know that that was a Wakandan that's in the comics. I was just like, was that supposed to be Shuri? I was getting excited, and then I'm like, well, at least they're saying she's from Wakanda.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Paul F. Tompkins, so it was great hearing his voice come out of
Hmm.
The Wizard. And I, who else is on that team? And then that, I guess, Gene, who's got photographic memory, so they did a nice joke there. Again,
Yeah.
I only knew that because of Nando. The whole I probably won't remember you. And he's like, yeah, she will.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I like that he was because he basically the show was asking the questions I was asking of like, so when is he going to go see Norman? Because Norman asked him to go see him right away, and he's like, I want to know when's a good time, and everyone's like, you're an idiot. um, yeah, I really like that he has to now be around people who are potentially just as smart as him. So
Yeah.
he's actually got to work for it, and how that will make him look when he has to go off and do his Spider-Man stuff. It is a
Mhm.
great place to put him. Um,
Which, by the way, I will pause real quick. The fact that Amadeus Cho is in this is really, really good because, like, I've been tagged in multiple photos and multiple people
yeah,
being like, you know, you can play this guy, and I'm like, yeah, I'm too old to play
you could
Amadeus
cosplay for
Cho,
sure.
but I could cosplay him for
Yeah,
sure. And I'm like, yeah, he does look like me. So I'm like, hey, Marvel, let's do the Shang-Chi thing where I tweet at you and you cast me later on
exactly.
and just de-age me. It'll
There
hurt
you
my
go.
ego, but just de-age me.
They love de-aging. So yeah, um, yeah, I appreciated that group, and then I should look up her name. They did a gender and race swap on.
Dr. Connors.
Yeah, but what's her full
I
name?
know, I know. I'm just I can't remember. Carla, is it?
That sounds right. Why doesn't IMDb just show her name? This is killing me.
Yeah, it bothers me. It just says additional voices. It's silly.
Just it just says Dr. Connors. Well, Zara Faisal plays her, but
Mhm.
I don't remember. Carla sounds right.
Mhm.
I think I said Kira earlier, but I think Carla's right. Um, I like how calm she is. I really
Mhm.
like that she's like, okay, hey Peter, and then he's like, oh, like the Stark actually like, yeah. I mean, well, not that because he has a patent on it, but yes, this is what we're trying to do. I'm gonna
Mhm.
bring you right into the fold. She tries to cover for him when he's out late. I
Mhm.
think that's the only slow part for me was him fighting the fire guy. I don't remember the name of the fire guy now.
Uh, something burner or something?
Butane.
Butane. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I don't know. This is going on for a while.
It was a funny gag, though. It was.
There's funny moments, but I was like, this is going on for quite some time. I don't know if I need all of this. And
Yeah.
that really came down to, I think, a compliment I want to give the show, which is like Superman and Lois, I am just interested in the actual characters, and I don't. Obviously, it's Spider-Man. I want to watch Spider-Man do Spider-Man things, but I was kind of like, what's going on with the internship? Like, what's he going to do? Like, how's I was like, yeah, man, like, hurry up. You got to get back to your internship.
Yeah, you got work to do. Um, By the way, it is Carla Connors.
Okay, good, good.
It is Carla. So yeah, it's it's yeah, it's that fight was just so funny because I'm like the fact that he's like, this is 51st Street. Like you got the
Yeah.
wrong thing. But the whole idea of like he does the traditional villain monologue is like, this is exactly what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing it for, and this person. I'm like, this is kind of silly. It's goofy. It's the right vibes for the show right now. It's
Hmm.
good. It's real fun.
I
Yeah.
another thing that happens during the beginning of the episode that I really liked, again, Lonnie related, was you see them and they're all celebrating with the, or not celebrating, they're rubbing the trophy for
Yeah.
good luck, and I was like, I don't know if I was like, oh no, here they go. That I didn't think he was going to bully Peter, but I thought the friends wouldn't accept Peter. But he's
That's
like,
what I
no,
thought too.
I'm bringing in Peter. Like
Yeah.
everyone say hi to him, and they were just like, yeah, okay, cool. Hey, how's it going? They didn't talk shit to him, and then when he found out, oh, you have an internship, you should be getting the good luck.
Mhm.
I was like, what a supportive, thoughtful person. I really like Lonnie,
That's why I love
and he's
Lonnie.
really, this is really gonna break my heart in the future, but I really like Lonnie.
Yeah.
And again, I like that it, the only thing funny that happened was that Peter kind of started feeling himself a bit too much. It wasn't that like they
Yeah.
set him up to laugh at him. They were starting with the Peter, but he kind of took over and they were kind of like, oh, okay, cool, man. And then he got stopped by the teacher. But I just like that they like Lonnie enough to be like, if he's like cool with him, then, and it's not like they were all like, we're best friends with Peter, but it was just like they're not going to talk shit to him. They're not
Yeah.
going to bully him. And
Yeah.
I really like that.
It's so cool to see like that what like I legitimately thought like, oh no, there's gonna be something that's gonna be weird about this, but they were all just like, no, we're all just, it's game day, we're all just
Yeah, they're
hyped
just
right
excited.
now,
Yeah.
we're just doing our thing, and like, like, hey Peter, come over here, let's cheer you on too. I'm like, this is great,
Hmm.
man, this is so great.
Also, once you see the football team, I was like, oh, they're not at Midtown High. I completely missed that plot point that they just had to go to a different school because Doctor Strange's fight ruined Midtown High. I was like,
Right.
the fuck is Bales? Is that another name for Ravens? I thought they were the Ravens, and then I was like, oh, they're at a completely different school, which is explained earlier in the
Hmm.
episode. It just was like completely went over my head. I felt really dumb.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like that. Also, his coach is a super, or he's a character in the things NFL Pro.
Yeah, whatever his thing is. That was
Yeah,
a weird crossover by the NFL
yeah,
with Marvel at some point to try to like
which
boost
is,
NFL players. But
that's wild.
I mean,
Again,
it's transparent.
I
It's
just like
good.
that they're like, look, we are doing a comic book show, so the comic book characters will be there.
Yeah. It's got deep cuts. It's got a lot of the different things for a lot of people that are deep into the comics to really appreciate. I like it a lot. And
And like
then
Mando
in
said, it's characters that you don't normally associate with Spider-Man,
yep,
specifically like Nico,
yep.
as being like a second lead,
Mhm.
is interesting because I feel like that's also the inverse of what they were doing with MCU Spider-Man, where they're like, well, we got to pair him with an established MCU character so that
Mhm.
people accept him into the MCU. This is like, we're going to pair a bunch of people that we can use later with this Spider-Man, so you just like them if they
Yeah,
move on. And again, I am aware that this is not MCU continuity, but it is still a touch point for people to see these characters and
sure.
understand who they are if they are introduced into the MCU later.
And at this point with the multiverse and all that kind of stuff, it's just like, yeah, it's, let's say it's Earth 613 or whatever it is. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's
I just mean like, yeah, they're not tied. I mean, because even if you did that, you would still have to mean that this is continuity MCU, which I think they're saying, the writers are saying, is not continuity at all.
yes, yeah.
So
And I like that because, and again, this is reverting back to Nando. He's like, because it's, we're not immediately dissecting every single thing to be like, but that conflicts with this, and this
mhm,
conflicts with this, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, we can just sit back, chill, and enjoy this, and be like, huh, I see where that sequence comes from. That's great. That's a
yeah,
nice nod. I like that.
I like that. Yeah, you don't really get much of Harry Osborn other than the scene I already explained, where he um is a fan of Spider-Man right away because Spider-Man saves him, and I was like, when are
Mhm.
they gonna be real friends? Because right now it feels like Lonnie is taking the Harry spot.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. Not a concern of mine. It's just like that's interesting that I have something to look forward to still.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna, yeah, I think that the show does a very good job of curbing any issues that I guess someone like me might have. So I think obviously you can get into the whole, oh, he's just trying to uphold status quo by
Hmm.
stopping bad guys, but I like that they made a point of being like, no. And I don't think it's not present in other Peter Parker stories, like
Hmm.
especially No Way Home is him being like, well, they're bad guys, but like I'm not going to just condemn them to death. Like we should try and help them. I like that this Spider-Man is also like in his friendly neighborhood way, like, yeah, this person stole from you, but up to you. And I also like that he said it's up to you. Like I'm not here to tell you not to do to press
Hmm.
charges, but also let's take into the like to affect like the context of this.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that, and I really liked what they did with Lonnie Lincoln,
Hmm.
where he flat out said, "Yeah, I know that look. You're thinking, oh, I didn't know the star quarterback knew that shit."
Hmm.
Um, and that's pretty much his whole character is like, oh, you thought it was going to be this, but it's not.
Yeah.
I do like they don't give Pearl much to say, but I like that trying to kind of intricacy of like that's his crush because she babysat him, and they're not too far off because they go to the same high school, but it is funny that it's like it isn't like the other love interests we've seen. This is
Hmm.
like I mean, she got in there early, kind of imprinted on him, and or he imprint on her rather, and it's something that he'll have to get over. um, but I just like that little twist there that he's like, yeah, it's the babysitter I had a crush on.
Yeah.
I want to ask her out.
I mean that happens a lot. It's a quite
Hmm.
common trope, and
Hmm.
I'm just like, yep, good for them for finding that. It's good. Yeah.
Um, yeah. I guess the
I will
big thing we haven't
say,
said. Oh yeah, what were you gonna
uh,
say?
I think you were about to talk about it, like the big thing about like the fact that he gets caught
Hmm.
in the stairwell at the end of the second episode, where Norman's like, "Hey, all right, we gotta talk about this. What's going on here with you being Spider-Man and all that kind of stuff." I like the fact that, like what you pointed out with him not being good at the webbing and all that kind of stuff, he's not good at hiding his identity yet. He's like,
No,
oh,
he's
okay,
just like out
let
in
me.
the open doing shit.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just gonna hide my face and all this kind of stuff. And it's just even the idea of like, all right, you don't have any kind of covering on your fingers. You're just leaving your fingerprints all over the
Hmm.
place, kind of
Hmm.
deal. If your fingerprints were ever registered by the police, in the database and all that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, you're pretty screwed if they find out. So I like that he's not good, and I think it's such an interesting point to be like, okay, well, Norman already knows who his identity is, and like, how's that going to work out? Is there going to be some sort of mentorship that goes wrong there? And like, where's that going? But I think that's
I
such a cool thing to do.
What I like is that they already showed that he's susceptible to just like feeling himself really
Yes.
early on, like with the way they were cheering on. Then he took over the chant,
Mhm.
and I can see him like getting a support of the most popular guy in New York, Norman Osborn, and then kind of going down a path of like, whoa, reel it back, buddy. Maybe don't feel yourself so much. I would like to see that, but also that's me trying to write the story for them. They already have their story, but
Sure.
I feel like they already kind of sampled. They gave you a taste of what it's like when he starts to think his shit doesn't stink.
Hmm.
And if you've got a Norman Osborn backing you, then that could happen, and you lose some of the things that he was doing that we liked early on, like the helping people no matter what, and specifically not trying to penalize people for making choices. Um, where they should have had supports in other ways. I think that is a good path to go down, but obviously not one they have to go down. It's just one of
Hmm.
those things that I saw and thought was interesting. Um, I've seen reactors be like it's too early for Norman to know, but I'm like, I don't know. It just felt like very clear to me they were doing like instead of Tony, it's Norman, and Tony already knew. And
Hmm.
in this show, when you actually see it play out, there's reason to believe he's like, oh, I didn't know until you changed in my fucking hallway, and then I
Hmm.
saw. So like, I don't know how that's too soon. It's like, well, that's his fault for doing. That's Peter's fault for doing what he did. in a heavily secure building that everyone kept telling was heavily secure and a bunch of security.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I disagree with that. The fact that they think it's too soon. I'm just like, what do you need this to be a third act reveal and
Yeah,
they're fighting and punching each other and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, no, this is actual tension that is very,
yeah.
very interesting because I'm looking at this Spider-Man being like, I don't believe that he can take on those super villains yet. He barely survived the
Hmm.
butane kind of thing. I'm just like, no, I want to see how he gets there and then what the tension is that causes the strife between him and Harry and Norman. You know what I mean? It's just like that is kind of great to see that going along. And sure, like now we're probably gonna think like Oscorp is gonna be involved in his suit upgrades,
I would assume,
throughout.
yeah.
Yeah, in anything like that, it's just very much like they did in the Raimi kind of thing, where there was like Norman stuff going on there too. But like
Oh
this
well,
is
that was the Mark Webb ones. He took his
oh right
shit.
right
He
right
took his shit from
yeah
Oscorp. But yeah,
yeah
I know what you mean.
yeah
Yeah, I think, as you said, that is just an interesting wrinkle that he knows. But also, as I said, like it's either he only ever went to that house because he knew he was Spider Man, or he found out that way. But either way, I'm like, this. There's no reason for them to intersect if he's not going to be like, "Oh, you're Spider Man."
Mhm,
Might as well get that set in place right away.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, I'm fine with that, and I hope that this is a show that, especially since I think they already knew they had a second season, and then they got renewed for a third season on like the day of.
Mhm,
Um, Hopefully they're like, yeah, we know, we have an idea of where we're going with this.
mhm.
So I'm not too worried about that. I don't know if we've missed anything. I feel like we must have.
Not sure if we have. I'm just like the one thing I will say is like if you look at the Wikipedia or anything like that, it spoils a lot of people that are gonna be like, who's kind of gonna be a part of this show, and I'm like, oh man, not sure I
Mm-hmm.
like seeing that. But yeah, there's like 10 episodes here. And I think it's really interesting how they're releasing them. But it's
I
because
mean, works
apparently
for
there's
me.
like multiple episodes at one time
Yep,
in a week, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm a
that works
big
for our
fan of that.
purposes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because
Um,
once a week is too much. So I think I like this release schedule where there's like they're just basically chunks at a time being
mhm.
thrown at us. It's great.
um, yeah, I feel like this is gonna be a short one because I don't really have anything to say other than I'm intrigued. I thought this was a strong first two episodes to get me interested, and despite the lead actor's best interests to turn people away.
Yeah, to be edgy or whatever it is. I just like it's just a stupid comment as far as I'm concerned. That was just not coded well in the sense where it's like, no, what could you clarify what you mean by that? Because we know what you mean, but like, what do you think you mean when you say
I mean,
that?
unless he was trying to be like, "Hey, listen, all those alt right people that got worried about all the colored people, just watch the show anyway. Don't worry, trust
Yeah,
me, it's not woke." And then they'll be surprised. But um, yeah, it was something he should not have said.
no,
Is all I have to say. That
definitely should not have said that. Definitely
yeah,
should
I
not have
can't
said that.
control what he feels on the inside, but
Hmm.
we're not friends. I don't need to know how you really feel about anything. And
Hmm.
let's just keep it to me enjoying your performance or not enjoying your performance.
Yep, yep. And yeah, this is it's truly unfortunate that he went out there and said that. But it's very fortunate that he's very wrong because the show is very woke.
Hmm. It is, which, as I alluded to, I it felt like Nanda was trying to be like it's woke because there's people of color or race swapping. That's not what woke means,
No.
but but it is what certain people want you to think it is, so that you can be like, yeah, I don't like when
Mhm.
things are woke,
Mhm.
which is what I was saying earlier. That you confuse the issue, so it doesn't help if people who are on the right side of it also
Mhm.
misuse the word. That was the point I was trying to get at. But yes, I think uh, what we'll be doing is next week we'll most likely be doing Invincible,
Hmm.
the first 3 episodes that come out of that,
Oh yeah.
and then we'll probably just be doing offsetting Spider-Man and Invincible until they're done,
Hmm.
with obviously the Captain America Brave New World break.
Yeah.
Not a break, but just we're going to be covering that the weekend it comes out.
Hmm.
So there will be a break from Spider-Man and Invincible coverage for
Yeah.
Captain America Brave New World, but that is what you can expect from us moving forward. For February is back and forth with Invincible and Spider-Man until Brave New World.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think that's it, man. I don't know what else. 2 episodes, and I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they stick the landing for season 1.
Yeah, me too. It's very fun. I'm liking it a lot. I'm liking the fact that it's Spider-Man, but giving me stuff that I don't expect from Spider-Man. Beautiful because there's a big part of me that whenever there's Spider-Man stuff now, that's not a continuity or a sequel from whatever we've already done. It's just like, oh no, do we have to watch Uncle Ben get killed? Do we have to watch this happen? Do we have to watch it? I'm like, it just, this is doing it really, really cool. So very, very much looking forward to how the other people in the roster kind of come into the play,
Mm-hmm.
and looking forward to what they're going to do with this story because it's a lot of fun right now, and it's just the only thing I will say is I'm not on as high on the animation as everyone else is, I
Oh, I
think.
think no one likes the animation. I've only
Really?
heard people be down on it like you.
Oh, okay. Like
I
I
don't
get why they're doing it
I
because they're
don't
like
know
fusing it together
anyone.
with a 60s kind of thing,
Yeah,
but like
the
I
Ditko
don't
style,
love it.
and I or
Yeah.
maybe there's a different style, but to me it looks like a version of Ditko. But I think people have referenced other artists.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I have not heard anyone enthusiastically like the anime. I think at best I hear people like, I I think most people hate the animation. I don't. I'm very clearly not as picky about animation. I see where they're going. I think Nando brought it up. I've seen reactors bring it up. Like sometimes it looks pretty sparse for New York.
Mhm.
Um, Also, not everyone moves in the background.
Mhm.
So there's that, and I think in general people just don't like MCU's. I know this isn't MCU continuity, but it is obviously under Kevin Feige
Mhm.
production. I don't think they like their animation in general, so
Mhm.
I would say you're pretty safe to make that comment.
Yeah.
I have not seen anyone be enthusiastic about it, and more times than not, I see people being negative about it.
Mhm.
Whereas it's not really an issue for me at the moment.
Mhm. It doesn't bother me, but I'm just like, I don't think it's the greatest. Whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, I think I heard people talk about rushing it out, so
Yeah.
that's
But
unfortunate.
what I will say is that it is consistent with a lot of the American animated series kind of stuff that you would see coming out of America, you know?
Yeah,
I'm just like,
like Invincible style.
exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of bold colors, a lot of all the kind of stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Doesn't work for me quite so well, but it's not egregiously bad either. Like I do like the character design of Spider-Man in his first like suit. Because I'm like, he had a custom made hockey jersey with a spider on it.
hmm
That's awesome. It's so fun. It's really, really
Yeah.
good.
I mean, the show is very clearly like you're gonna get a lot of suits based on the.
Mhm.
That's another thing. I really like the theme song.
Yes.
Uh, Another thing that I was like, man, this actor's probably gonna hate the theme song too. I think I don't know if this is gonna work out for him.
Mhm.
But yeah, I like anytime people sample the like '60s cartoon
Mhm.
Spider-Man. Like obviously I like hip hop, so I like that they're rapping over it. But even if there was no rap on it, I would have loved that theme song as an instrumental.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, to the point where when Disney Plus is like, "You want to skip this?" I'm like, "No, shut up! Like I don't get out of the way. I want to enjoy this." I really like the theme song.
Yeah.
It's "Neighbor" by me,
Yeah.
"Neighbor Like Me," but
Nice.
yeah, it's a good song. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. You can find us on all the podcast platforms that you tend to go to. So rate, review, subscribe, follow, share with your friends on there. If you don't find us where you want to find us, then you can email us, spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We are at TDF Spoiled on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And you can go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten and find all of our coordinates and also all of the episodes. So get in touch how it makes sense for you and engage with the show. And we will be back next week, most likely with Invincible, unless it's easier for me to watch Spider-Man. But I'm pretty sure we're just going to commit to Invincible and get those first 3 episodes out. All right. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.